Okay, it's finally happening. After almost 10 years of successfully using Finasteride for my hairline and temples, it seems like the party's ending. I was hoping this thing would have worked for me longer. Now maybe this was you, or you are worried that something like that may happen to you in the future. Well, listen up. In this video I want to talk about Finasteride's long-term hair keeping ability on your hairline, temples, or anywhere else. So make sure you stay tuned. And as always, before we start, shout out to our sponsor GoFiber. These are hair building fibers you can use to mask any thinning or patchy areas on your scalp to make your hair look thicker and better. So make sure you check out the link in the video description below where you can visit GoFiber, get a free sample of your choice and try them out. See if you like them. Now, personally, I don't like the term Finasteride stopped working for me, but I rather prefer using something like Finasteride is unable to keep my hair the way it used to. Because if you look at this chart, if you take 1 milligram Finasteride every single day, you will be able to suppress your systemic DHT in about 55% at least, some studies claiming up to 70%. While you are thinking that Finasteride stopped working for you, guess what? Your DHT is still being suppressed 70%. In fact, if you stop taking Finasteride, as you are seeing on this chart right here, it will always get way worse from there. If you look here, they actually made some subjects who were in the treatment group switch into placebo group after 12 months after using Finasteride 1 milligram, and guess what happened? From a mean change from baseline in terms of hairs regrown, it was about 100. After 12 months it went all the way down to 0, actually even negative. So they have actually ended up worse than before they started Finasteride. So right now, if you are in that situation where you think or you feel that Finasteride is unable to keep your hair the way it used to, remember, it's the rest of the 30% of your DHT. Remember, Finasteride only blocks the 70%. You still have 30% of your DHT that remains kind of unblocked, uninhibited, and that's something that it's still causing your hair loss. How long-term is Finasteride hair keeping power actually, based on studies? Do we have even a right to expect from Finasteride to be able to keep our hair, especially temples and hairline, for a certain amount of years, like for X amount of years? Here we have a 2-year study, 5-year study, and the third one, a 10-year study, which is the longest study done on patients suffering from hair loss, where even their hair density has been tracked throughout all the time. So in this 2-year study, we are seeing improvement after taking 1 milligram of Finasteride in the first year and also in the second year. There is even more improvement in the second year. Are you able to keep your hair with Finasteride for at least 2 years? Yes, that's the answer based on this study. Now, if we have a look at the 5-year study done on 126 Korean men, 85.7% showed improvements even after 5 years. So that's already a pretty good number. It's a higher number already compared to many people who have already contacted me over the years. In fact, this is an example of one of my recent clients who I was also mentoring, and he was on Finasteride from the age of 25 until 27, and right now he's like in 27, 28, and he kind of drew a conclusion here that although Finasteride helped him during the first 2 years or so, right now it seems like his temples are still visibly receding further. So is it possible that you will lose ground earlier than 5 years? Yes. What does it depend on? I will share with you in a minute. Now, back to this 5-year study. If you look at this study, according to their results, you can notice how pretty much a great level of stabilization was observed after first year of taking Finasteride. So their results with Finasteride kind of peaked in the first year, and then from there on it just stabilized. Now, one more interesting thing that they were trying to observe was also like how much did the alopecia progress after peak improvement with Finasteride. So if we look at the chart here, we can see the peak improvement. It seems like it was the year number 2, because that's where they kind of got the biggest peak in the mean IGA score. They had 3 groups of guys. The first group with the M shape, Norwood 1 to Norwood 4 class, you know, like that usual male pattern baldness progression. The second group was the V type, vertex type with the crown hair loss, and the third type was the F type, the diffuse hair loss type, with a large diffuse thinning. And interestingly, after that peak finasteride induced improvement, the biggest hair loss worsening has been shown in the diffuse hair loss type group. It was 16.2%. After that, it was the vertex type, the 10.3%. And interestingly, no guys who were like between Norwood 1 and Norwood 4, none of them actually have experienced any hair loss worsening after that peak improvement with finasteride, which is very, very interesting here. So that kind of suggests that the lower Norwood you are, Norwood 1.5 to Norwood 4, and you start with finasteride, it's more likely that you will actually respond to finasteride longer. Plus, there is also an interesting finding from a study that actually you can see here Dr. Bernstein quoting. This study says that the age of a patient did have a statistically significant effect on the outcome of finasteride treatment, as well as patients older than 30 years had better hair regrowth in the long term. So it's not just the lower your baldness level is while starting finasteride, but it also seems to be the age as well. Now, in the longest finasteride study, observing 523 Japanese men, this study suggests that finasteride should be working at least 10 years. If you look at the chart here, guys, you notice that, again, especially by the lower Norwoods, it's almost like continuously just getting better, slightly better, better every year until the 10th year. Not really the case with the Norwood 5, 6, and 7. It seems to just stabilize pretty quickly after the first year, maybe even deteriorate a little. But for the lower Norwoods, it seems like a really great hope to keep their hair at least for 10 years. Now, I actually think that the results of those long-term finasteride studies could have been slightly different if they would have been done on a population of the United States, Europe, UK, Canada, or Australia. Now, if we look at these statistics here, which shows us the ratio of men with thinning hair per country. Now, I need to tell that this is a statistics from 2000, not from 2023, so that's a little limitation right from the start. However, we will notice that Korea and Japan have relatively low occurrence of men with thinning hair percentage-wise, namely 22.37 Korea and 26.05% for Japan. Now, compared to some European nations, including United States, Canada, or UK, with the percentages ranging from mid-30s all the way to 40s. And now you're like, hey, what are you trying to say, Matt? Does it mean that guys from these regions in Europe, USA, Canada, UK are less likely to respond to finasteride in the long run? Well, I think it is more like that guys from these regions seem to start experiencing first signs of hair loss earlier on in their life on average. And here is why. We know that the older you are, the higher the chance of male pattern baldness affecting you there is. Now, if we look at the average age of general population per nation ranking, we will see that it is being actually dominated by Japan with a median age of 48.6 years. It means that Japan, in fact, has relatively low rates of balding men considering the average population age. Now, a median age of a US national is 10 years less than in Japan. It's 38.5, while at the same time USA having actually a 13% higher ratio of men with thinning hair. And at the same time, you can check it for the UK, Canada, or other European countries, having more younger people living there on average, but these people having higher balding rates than Japan. Well, another limitation here would be that the median age was calculated based on females and males, not just males. But this is, again, just a slight limitation, in my opinion, not gonna be a big data changer. So what do I want to say with that? Although we do have studies that suggest that finasteride should be working for you and be able to keep your hair well if you start early on, at least for 2 years, probably even 5 to 10 years, also very likely. I do know people who have been responding to finasteride for more than 10 years, like even more than 20 years. However, these could be exceptions, and based on this data from Korea and Japan, it seems like if you are from US, UK, Canada, Europe, maybe you are more likely to experience baldness earlier on, and then that make you start with finasteride maybe too late when you are already like higher Norwood, and then finasteride does not work for you that well. It's just a theory, right? Why does finasteride stop working for some people, or better said, stops keeping their hair prematurely? So here's the first reason, or first most common thing in my opinion, while many people start losing ground on finasteride sooner or later. So it's simply being more prone to developing a more rapid hair loss progression. That means you may have more sensitive androgen receptors in the scalp or certain areas of your scalp, let's say it's temples or hairline. Your follicles become pretty sensitive to the remaining 30% of the DHT that is still not being inhibited by finasteride, and thus it will make you lose ground over time. Now, the second reason could be also that your testosterone levels are just too damn high. With higher testosterone levels, your DHT levels are also likely going to rise a little bit. There is not an exact proportion by how much your DHT levels will rise with rising testosterone levels. However, especially over the last 20 years with the rising fitness niche popularity and teenagers starting working out heavily already with 15, 16, taking creatine, which has been also shown, by the way, to increase your DHT levels by up to 40 to 50%, obviously during the loading phase, where we are taking like 10 to 20 grams of creatine per day, which I do not recommend to anybody of you who is interested in keeping your hair in the long run. And obviously, guys nowadays, taking it even one level higher and using all sorts of anabolic androgenic steroids, they're adding even more harm on top of your hair, things that have not been as spread out 30, 40 years ago as they are today, and they were not as available as well. So all these things are contributing towards guys not being able to keep their hair with finasteride for many, many years. And if you are the type of guy who is maybe more prone towards developing a more rapid hair loss progression and was unable to respond or keep his hair with finasteride, then you should watch this video next, because in this video I will share with you what are the things that you should be doing right now to keep your hair, even if finasteride stopped working for you or maybe is not able to keep your hair the way you want. See you in that video.